You must leave! Get out of our village!
Hey, beautiful people. Welcome back. If you are new here, hello, you picked a very good day to find us. Where are you watching from right now? Drop your country or city in the comments. I always love to see where our family is spread across this earth. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do it now. This story is not one you want to be interrupted in the middle of. Settle in, because today we go deep. The morning they decided to cut Zuri's hair, she already knew. She had felt it in her sleep, the cold whisper of iron against her neck, the collective breath of the village held tight like a fist. She sat up from her sleeping mat before the rooster called, and the strands of her hair caught the pre-dawn darkness, glimmering silver and blue like moonlight trapped in water. Even in shadow, her hair shone. That was the problem. That had always been the problem. They said it was a curse. They had been saying it since the day she was born, when her mother, barely alive herself after the long labor, looked at her daughter's head and gasped. Not in joy, in fear. The village elder, old Obasi, had leaned over the birthing mat and pressed his lips together. "This child carries something that does not belong to us," he had said. And from that day, the village of Enwi had believed him. Now Zuri was 22 years old, and Obasi was dead, and still the belief lived on, passed from mother to daughter, from elder to apprentice, like a bitter cola nut shared at every gathering. Her silver hair, which grew and never dulled, was proof of something wrong. Something dangerous. And on this particular morning, the women of Enwi had gathered outside her door with a blade. She could hear Adana's voice above all the others, sharp like broken pottery. "We warned her mother. We warned her father before he ran. Today, we fix the problem ourselves." Zuri did not move. She sat with her knees drawn to her chest, her silver hair pooling around her on the mat like a river at rest. And she asked the only question that ever truly mattered in a moment like this. Why do they fear what they don't understand? And what happens when they destroy the very thing that could save them? Here is what the village knew about Zuri. She was strange, she was quiet, she was silver-headed in a place where everyone else was dark-crowned, and her tears, when she cried, which was rarely, sparkled like ground diamonds on her cheeks before they fell. Here is what the village did not know. Those tears had once healed a dying goat. She had been 12, weeping alone at the river after Adana's children had thrown red mud into her hair, and the tears that fell from her face had dripped onto the old goat lying sick at the bank. By evening, the goat was standing, eating, alive. Zuri had told no one. She had learned early that the safest version of herself was the invisible one. Her only true friend in Enwi was Amma, short, round-faced, fierce as a mama bird, and completely unafraid of what people said. Amma had been the first child to ever sit beside Zuri at the fire circle. She had done it at age 7, while every other child shuffled away, and she had said with the simple certainty of someone who has decided, "Your hair is the most beautiful thing I have ever seen." They had been inseparable ever since. And then there was Kofi. Kofi was not from Enwi. He had arrived 8 months ago, a healer's apprentice from the Eastern Valley, sent to study the river plants near their village. He was tall and careful with his words, the kind of man who listened more than he spoke. He had noticed Zuri the way a person notices a fire burning in a place no fire should be, with confusion first, then wonder, then the slow, unstoppable lean forward. He had never spoken to her about her hair as something wrong. He had only ever asked once, very quietly, "Does it feel like anything, when it shines like that?" And she had not known what to say because no one had ever asked her about it from the inside before. If you are loving this story so far, please subscribe to the channel. There are more stories like this one waiting for you, and it means the whole world to us when you join the family. The door opened before Zuri could decide whether to run. Adana stood there, tall, angular, dressed in her best wrapper like she was attending a festival, which Zuri thought bitterly she probably believed she was. Behind her, 7 women. The blade in Adana's hand was not ceremonial. It was the kind used to cut cane. "Zuri," Adana's voice had that particular quality of a woman who has convinced herself she is doing good. "The elders have spoken. The drought has entered its 4th month. The river is low. 3 children are sick with the chest fever. And you with this spirit hair, you are the reason. The ancestors are offended. We are here to correct it." You have no elder here, Zuri said. Her voice was steady, which surprised even her. Obasi is dead. Who gave this order? Adana smiled, not with her eyes. The village gave the order, all of us. Your hair will be cut, and you will be clean, and maybe then the rains will come. Zuri looked at the 7 women. Some would not meet her eyes. She knew their children. She had once quietly left medicine leaves at the door of one of their huts when her son had the fever. She had done it without asking for thanks. She had never asked for anything. Let me pass, she said. No. That was when Amma arrived, breathless, her wrapper half-tied, panic bright in her eyes. Leave her alone now. She shouted in the raw, unfiltered dialect she only used when she was truly angry. Which kind nonsense is this? What didn't she do, you people? She pushed her way between Zuri and Adana, arms spread, small body made enormous by rage. The standoff lasted long enough for the morning sun to fully rise, and then someone screamed from the far end of the village. The scream came from the river. Or rather, from where the river used to be. Zuri pushed past Adana and ran toward the sound, and the women followed despite themselves because there are things louder than fear of the strange, and one of those things is the sound of a mother screaming for her child. Emeka, 6 years old, round-bellied, the one who always threw his sandals into the dust and ran barefoot, had gone to the riverbed at dawn to catch morning crabs the way boys do when no one is watching. But the riverbed was not just low now. In the night, the last remaining pool had retreated to a crack in the earth, and Emeka had followed it too far into the collapsed bank, and now he was trapped beneath a shelf of red mud, only his arm visible, his fingers moving weakly. The men of the village came. They dug with their hands, with sticks, with anything. But the more they dug, the more the shelf groaned and shifted, threatening to collapse fully. The child's arm stopped moving. His mother, Ngozi, one of the 7 women who had stood behind Adana with the blade, dropped to her knees and could not get back up. Kofi arrived beside Zuri without either of them saying a word. He had his healer's satchel over one shoulder, and his eyes moved over the collapsed bank with the sharp, measuring look of someone trained to read what the land is doing. The shelf will not hold, he said quietly, only to her. More weight on it and it crushes the boy. We need to pull him from below, not dig from above. He paused. But no one can get under there without, he stopped. He was looking at her hair. Not the way the village looked at it. Not with fear or contempt. With the look of a man connecting something he has been thinking about for 8 months. Zuri, he said carefully. Your hair, it is strong, yes. I have never seen it break. I have never seen it tangle even in the harshest wind. I watched a branch fall on it last dry season and the branch, he paused, the branch split. She had not realized he had seen that. The idea forming between them was impossible, terrifying, and it was the only one they had. Tell me exactly what you're thinking, Zuri said. She was not afraid. That surprised her. Kofi pulled her away from the crowd just a few steps, just enough for privacy. Your hair does not break because it is not ordinary. He hesitated, and she saw something like guilt cross his face. I have been researching it. I'm sorry. I should have told you. The Eastern healers have records of women like you, born in drought years under a particular sky. The hair carries water memory, it can sense underground springs, trace the path of hidden rivers. And its strength, he exhaled, is enough to act as a rope that can hold ground together from the inside if it is woven correctly and inserted into the fissure below the shelf. Zuri stared at him. You are telling me my hair can save that child? I am telling you it is the only thing that can. His eyes were direct and full of something she had no word for yet. But it must be you who decides. I will not ask you to give anything to people who have, he stopped, because they both knew the end of that sentence. Adana was 20 feet away, the cane blade still in her hand, watching Zuri with burning eyes. Ngozi was on her knees in the riverbed clay, her son's small arm gone still. Zuri made her decision in the space between one breath and the next, not because the village deserved it, not because they had been kind or fair or ever looked at her with anything but suspicion. She made it because Emeka was 6 years old and had nothing to do with any of it, and because she had spent her whole life being told she was a curse, and she was finished, utterly and completely finished, letting them define what she was. Tell me what to do, she said to Kofi. He told her. Quickly, clearly, his voice low and steady as she untied her wrapper's edge and let her silver hair fall completely free, all of it, to her waist and beyond, shining even in the harsh noon light until several of the watching villagers stepped back. She heard someone whisper spirit. She heard someone else say curse. She felt the weight of 20 sets of eyes like stones placed one by one between her shoulder blades. Amma appeared at her side. I'm coming with you. You don't. I know, Amma said. I'm coming anyway. Kofi guided Zuri to the edge of the collapsed section. He had fashioned a guide knot from her longest strands. She had let him, barely breathing, and the plan was this. He would anchor the strands around a deep-rooted baobab stump at the bank's edge, and Zuri would ease herself down into the narrower approach tunnel beneath the collapsed shelf while her hair, threaded through the ground fissure and knotted against the shelf from below, would brace it long enough for the boy to be pulled free. Except when Zuri dropped herself down into the tunnel, the earth shifted immediately, a low, stomach-dropping groan, and clay fell across the back of her shoulders, and the space got smaller and smaller, and she could hear Emeka now, faintly, whimpering, and she could also hear the shelf above her beginning to fracture, and she understood with cold clarity that even if the hair held, she might not be able to get back out. Above ground, she heard Adana's voice, changed now, cracked at the edges. What is happening? What is she doing? Can she? A pause, then almost too quiet to hear. Can she actually do it? She could hear Kofi moving above, feel the vibration of him through the earth, and she pressed her palm against the clay wall and thought about every morning she had woken up in this village and been reminded that she did not fully belong. And she wove her hair through the fissure with both hands, strand by silver strand, and she said to herself the only thing that mattered. I know what I am. They do not get to decide. The shelf held. Not easily. Not without a second collapse to her left that pushed clay against her ribs so hard she lost breath for a moment. But the silver strands, woven against the underside of the shelf in the pattern Kofi had described, held the structure like a net holds water. Trembling, but holding. Zuri found Emeka by sound first. His whimper led her hand forward in the dark, and her fingers closed around a small wrist, and she said, I have you. I have you now, young man, don't be afraid. She pulled him close and felt him wrap both arms around her neck with the uncomplicated desperation of a child who has decided that whoever is in the dark with him is safe. It nearly undid her. Kofi, she shouted. I hear you, came back immediately, close, fierce, like he had been waiting right at the edge. I'm pulling. Let him come first. She guided Emeka toward the light, pushing him upward, feeling the shelf groan with every small movement until 4 hands reached down from above and pulled the boy into the sun. A wail from Ngozi, not grief this time. Release. Zuri pressed her forehead against the clay and breathed. Then Kofi's hand came back. Just his hand, reaching down into the dark, not to direct, not to instruct, simply reaching. Come, he said. She took his hand. She came. The village was silent when Zuri emerged. Not the silence of hostility, something older, something that happens when a group of people realize together that they have been profoundly, dangerously wrong, and that their wrongness nearly cost them everything. The silence of a reckoning. Her silver hair trailed out of the collapsed tunnel behind her, still glowing, dusted red with clay. Emeka was in his mother's arms, crying, and Ngozi was crying. And even 3 of the 7 women who had come to her door with Adana were crying, which Zuri found faintly absurd given the morning they had planned to have. And then something extraordinary happened, something not even Kofi had predicted. Something that made the remaining hardness in Zuri's chest break open like a seed pod in rain. Where her silver hair had threaded through the fissures of the collapsed riverbed, where strand after strand had pressed into the dry, desperate earth, water began to seep. Slowly at first, just dark patches in the clay, then a trickle, then a sound like laughter rising from underground, and water pushed up through the riverbed in a clean silver line, following the path her hair had traced. The water memory, Kofi had called it, the hair that carries the path of hidden rivers. Within an hour, the pool was forming. Within 3, you could hear it moving. Within a day, the elders from 2 neighboring villages would come to see what had opened the underground river that had been dry for a generation. But right now, in this moment, the people of Enwi stood at the bank and watched water come back to them like a thing they had not deserved and were being given anyway. Adana stood apart from the others. The cane blade was nowhere to be seen. She was looking at Zuri with an expression so foreign to her face that it took Zuri a moment to name it. Shame, yes, but also something harder to carry, the specific grief of someone who has spent years having a blessing and only now understands what they were doing. She did not apologize in words. She walked to the water's edge, filled a clay cup, and walked to where Zuri stood and held it out with both hands, the gesture of offering that Enwi reserved for elders and honored guests. It was the most Adana could give. Zuri looked at it for a long moment. Then she took it. If this story moved you, drop a comment below and tell us your favorite part. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time. Join our family and never miss a story. They called it Zuri's River, though she never asked them to. In the weeks that followed, the rains also came, not because of any curse broken or any spirit appeased, but because the underground river changed the moisture of the land, and the land changed what it offered to the sky, and the sky answered. The 3 sick children recovered. The crops came back. The village moved from the tight, hoarded silence of drought into the loose-limbed ease of people who can breathe again. Amma, characteristically, claimed she had believed in Zuri the entire time and told anyone who would listen. Nobody argued with her. Nobody had ever successfully argued with Amma about anything. Ngozi came to Zuri's door one morning with yam pottage and sat outside and said nothing for a long time and then said, "I held the blade, too." Zuri looked at her. "I know," she said, and Ngozi said, "I am sorry." And Zuri said, "I know that, too." It was not the end of the hurt. Healing like that does not arrive in a single morning, but it was the beginning of the end, and beginnings are the part that matter most. Kofi stayed. Not because anyone asked him to, not because his apprenticeship required it. He sent word to his Eastern masters that he had found a phenomenon worth studying and would need another season. The Eastern masters wrote back and said that was acceptable. He did not tell them the phenomenon had brown eyes and silver hair, and a laugh she kept very carefully guarded, the kind that only came out fully when she forgot to protect herself. They sat together at the river one evening, the one she had opened, now running clear and cool under the amber sky, and he said, "I owe you an apology. I studied you without your knowing." "You saved Emeka with what you studied," she said. "That doesn't make it right." She considered this, the specific care of a man who will not talk himself out of accountability even when the ending was good. She found it was the most attractive thing she had ever encountered in a person. "No," she agreed. "It doesn't, but I forgive you anyway." She paused. "Ask me next time." "Next time I will," he said, and she heard the full weight of what he meant by next time, all the seasons of it, all the mornings. Her hair moved in the evening breeze off the water. It caught the dying light and scattered it in small silver points across the bank, like stars brought down to walk among them. The village children, who had once been kept away from her, now chased those light points with their fingers, laughing, calling them river sparks, making a game of the magic without fear because children, when not taught to fear something, will simply find it wonderful. Zuri watched them and felt something unlock in her chest, slow, permanent, irreversible. The feeling of a life no longer lived in apology for itself. She had been born in a drought year, under a particular sky, with silver hair that shone and tears that healed and the memory of hidden water written into every strand. They had called it a curse for 22 years. They had been so afraid of what they did not understand that they nearly destroyed the only thing standing between them and ruin. But water does not stop being water because someone is afraid to drink. And Zuri, her hair loose and luminous in the evening, Kofi's shoulder warm against hers, Amma's voice carrying across the water in cheerful argument with someone about something that probably didn't matter. Zuri had never, not once in her whole life, been a curse. She had always been the blessing. "Thank you so much for staying till the very end. It means everything. Which character did you connect with most?" Tell us in the comments. We truly read every single one. And if you haven't subscribed yet, join our family right now. There are more stories like this one waiting for you. Until next time, take care of yourselves and remember, what they call your curse might just be the world's greatest gift, waiting for the right moment to shine.